What's going on, guys? This is Rob. If you guys enjoy my content, make sure you hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit that little bell so you never miss out on my sexy voice. Okay, so we're wrapping up Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps. Here's a funny thing. This is it. This is the end of Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps in DC Rebirth. At least I'm pretty sure it is. It's the final issue. From what I understand, what they're doing is they're combining Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps with Green Lanterns. And so going forward, this is going to be the new story, which is kind of interesting because as I understand it, Doomsday Clock was supposed to have been done by now or within the next month or two. And it's not. They've kind of had to extend it out in order to make time for the art, which I don't care. Gary Frank is an amazing artist. I'll wait until the end of time to see the end of that story, until the day I die to see the end of that story, if it means Gary Frank will keep drawing. Gary Frank, take as much time as you need, man. Dude, your art is amazing. but nonetheless, so basically this is the end of Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps. And so aptly, this is called the last charge of the Green Lanterns, which I think is an amazing name. But it's kind of cool because what this does is it kind of picks up with a little bit of a narrative of sorts. It really picks up with the nature of the Green Lantern Corps from the perspective of Tomar-Tu. And it's not the most significant thing, but it is kind of cool because what Tomar-Tu basically says here is like when he was younger, he watched his father as a Green Lantern and it was awe-inspiring. And so with Tomar-Tu giving us this bit of an explanation, what we know is that of course his father died and Tomar-Tu took his place. And with Tomar-Tu becoming a new Green Lantern, ultimately he was basically dissuaded by his father's death. For him it was crushing because it was like, okay, where's the justice here? Like where's the response to my father being killed? And that's one of the things that kind of drives his character. That's what he's been doing so far, is that in his mind, the man who killed his father is still alive. His father's dead, but this man's still alive. Apparently he was worthy of a second chance. Well, worthy according to who? Like who decided with an absolute certainty this guy deserves a second chance? And whoever said that was wrong. And so in turn, Tomar-Tu killed that guy, of course, after having taken over the mantle of the Darkstars. And that's what kind of leads us to the current moment. Now, the big thing about this is that John Stewart's initial response is we have to defeat the Darkstars without killing them. We have to show the world or show the universe that justice can be served without murdering people. And whether it's justified or unjustified. But here's the funny thing. When it comes to head-to-head confrontations like this, wars in this capacity are won by those who are willing to do what the others won't. Two armies who are even in power fighting against each other, it'll come down to whichever one's willing to do what the other one's not. Whoever is willing to push the limits, go to the ends of the earth, and basically do what needs to be done. And so in a lot of ways, John Stewart is handicapping his own team. He's handicapping the Green Lanterns by saying, look, you can't kill the Darkstars. We have to change their hearts and minds. And while that's admirable, at the end of the day, it really seems kind of pointless because how can you change the mind of a person who's hell-bent on revenge? The one thing they want is the one thing you're denying them. And so it's interesting, in this situation. And so while all this conversation's going on, this is kind of a funny little tidbit here. While all this conversation's going on, Hector Hammond is trying to make everybody happy. And he's doing it by like modifying how they see everything. And first they're at like a birthday party, and then they're like at a game, at like a baseball game. Who the hell goes to baseball games anymore? And then they're all on the beach, which is kind of funny. And it's just like he's just making them jump through all these different things. Finally, they tell him to call it off. But it's kind of funny. Like I like Hector Hammond now. Like I want to see more of that kind of Hector Hammond. For those of you guys who are new to comics, this is the kind of thing that changes people. Like people will go through and they'll read characters. I've seen it for years and years and years and years. People will go through and they'll read characters and won't really care about them. And then like a thing will happen. And fans will be like, you know what? I like that guy now. And like they'll like that person. They'll be like, I love Carol Danvers now, or I hate Carol Danvers now, or something like that. They'll be on this position where like their view of that character will change because of like one thing, because of one instance of how it's written. And so it's kind of cool and it's kind of funny. But nonetheless, with the Green Lanterns facing off against the Darkstars, this is really more of a repeat of the early stages of the Sinestro Corps War. For those of you guys who remember that, when the Green Lanterns were not authorized to kill, they were basically running and dodging all the time. They were constantly in a state of retreat because the Sinestro Corps were not limited by the bounds of killing. They killed Green Lanterns everywhere they found them. And so anytime a Green Lantern ran into a member of the Sinestro Corps or multiple members, they would basically take pot shots and they'd hightail it out of there. And if the Sinestro Corps was chasing after them, they would just play retreat or they would play defense until they got to a larger number of Green Lanterns, fend off as best they could, and get out of there. It wasn't until the Green Lanterns were allowed to kill that the battle became more even. And so it's a really interesting situation because when you have these Darkstars, what makes them so difficult, what makes them so deadly here is the fact that they can teleport. They teleport around. Also keep in mind that while they all do have their own individual perceptions, that their tactical capabilities are all linked telepathically by the controllers, which in turn are used by Tomar-Tu. And so what this means is that he's kind of like a one-man army, right? Like he's kind of directing all these members who are all basically automatons, and in turn, like they're launching all these different strike attacks at the Green Lanterns. They're all, you know, using this massive coordinated attack and then teleporting in and out, and it makes them almost impossible to catch. And so this is a whole new kettle of beans, because for the most part, it is, you know, you got like Orion on his little scooter thing, you know, his little scooter thing, and then of course you've got like General Zod here, and there's a lot of restraint that's being orchestrated because it's basically a battle on two fronts. You've got, you know, a massive number of the Darkstars who are facing off against like Hal Jordan and Orion and Kal Rayner and Guy Gardner and those guys, and then you've got the Darkstars who are back at Mogo attacking the headquarters. And so it's cool to see this unfold, because you're talking about people coming together who would normally never fight together, and seeing General Zod fight alongside the Lantern, like fight alongside Arkillo of the Sinestro Corps and the other Green Lanterns, and then of course like Orion, is actually pretty cool, because you would never really see anything like this. Now, of course, with regards to General Zod himself, and even with the Guardians of the Universe stepping in, by and large, their power is not really enough to stop the Darkstars, because the Darkstars were able to overpower the Controllers, who of course are formidable in and of themselves. But again, having a hive mind, being able to strategically plan out entire events, and knowing where every other member of the Darkstars are and striking in a coordinated fashion makes things incredibly difficult, because you got to remember, this is basically a battle on the spot for the Green Lanterns. It's just kind of the Darkstars are suddenly here. And so it's not like they had a huge amount of time to plan out how they're going to, you know, to strategically attack. And even if they did, there's no guarantee it would have gone to form, because they're not all linked to the same mind. And so that's one of the things that Orion points out here. We're way out of our league. Like we can't fight an enemy like this head on, because we're getting absolutely decimated by these guys. They're just too tactical, too strategic. There's nothing we can do here. And so Hal Jordan is kind of like the Trojan horse, right? Like Hal Jordan grabs Hector Hammond, and they take off to the Controllers where their minds are linked. And the idea of Hector Hammond is to sever the telepathic link. And it's kind of funny, because Venditti plays on this idea that it's going to be like an almost insurmountable task, and it's going to be wildly difficult to achieve. And so when he tells Hector Hammond, here's what I need you to do, Hector Hammond's like, okay, done. And then that's it. So it's like, okay, so we've achieved this. Okay, what's the next thing that we do now? And it kind of catches Hal Jordan by surprise. He's kind of like, well, I mean, I didn't really expect it to be that easy, but that's cool. So so this basically sends kind of a psychic shock through the minds of all the Darkstars. And even if it only grants a brief moment of reprieve, that's all the Green Lanterns need to swoop in and try to take out the entire Darkstar group in one fell swoop. Now, of course, it doesn't quite work as planned, because even when you're talking about the Darkstars losing their telepathic powers, they're still very, very, very dangerous in their own right. At this moment right now, they're more akin to the old Darkstars from like the 1990s, the original iteration of the group. But for this purpose, they're still pretty capable. Now, the other half of this is that they are still teleporting around in rapid fashion. And that's one of the other things. What John Stewart had done is he kind of orchestrated this two-pronged attack. The first was to cut off their telepathic connection using Hal Jordan, and the second one was to use the teleportation disruptor he'd built to block off their ability to teleport around. And so that's what ends up happening here. Tomar-Tu kind of starts talking trash, jumps in front of Hal Jordan, and he can't teleport away. Hal Jordan gets the better of him, gets the attack, and that's when they start to panic, and that's when they have to get out of there. At the same time, John Stewart shows up with a full contingent of the Green Lanterns and says, okay, now it's time for us to start taking the fight to the Darkstars. This is classic Green Lantern storytelling. It's one of the coolest things that you get to see. One of the things about the Green Lanterns and what makes them interesting in a lot of ways that Marvel lacks is there's no like disheveledness. You go and look at the cosmic landscape in Marvel Comics. You walk into a comic book store, you say, okay, I want to read Cosmic Marvel. It's like, well, take your pick. You've got Guardians of the Galaxy, you've got Nova, you've got Quasar, you've got any number of the other things who are out there. Like you've got all these huge expansive things. You got the Thanos book, you got Silver Surfer, you got all this stuff. With DC, it's not nearly that complicated. With DC, you don't have to worry about the Eternals, Neil Gaiman's Eternals or anything like that. It's just Green Lanterns, done. Super simple. And doing that basically allows a writer to consolidate and to focus strictly on the Green Lanterns with whatever it is they happen to be fighting against and whoever it is they want to invoke. Keep things simple and action-packed at the same time, and it works incredibly well. And so having these guys face off against each other like this, ultimately what it ends up doing is it comes down to Hal Jordan himself, because in reality, again, the plan of John Stewart's kind of failed. And that's one of the failings of John Stewart, is this belief that, well, we have to make sure that we stay the course. We have to make sure we do the right thing. And while that's admirable, admiration does not win wars. What wins wars is doing what needs to be done. And John Stewart, at the end of the day, is not doing what needs to be done. If they truly want to win, they have to kill all the Darkstars, to cut them off entirely. In response to this, Hal Jordan kind of picks up the slack and says, well then fine, because I'm basically walking, talking willpower, I'll channel that directly into the Darkstars themselves. And so where he faces off directly against Tomar-Tu, he's able to hold his own. I mean, Tomar-Tu is by no means a slouch. But the funny thing about this is that in this fight between the two, Tomar-Tu really keeps asking the question, how can you be okay with the fact that your dad died like that? Because it was essentially negligence. It was an aircraft that wasn't ready to fly. It took off, it blew up. The most predictable scenario happened. happen and you're pop side in the process. How can you be okay with this? And Hal Jordan's response was, well, because it's made me who I am. If everything that's ever happened to me in my life and everything I've ever said and ever done and has ever been done to me and has ever been said to me has led me to this place right now, it couldn't have been that bad because it's made me the hero that I am. But for Tomar-Tu, he's driven by grief and driven by rage and revenge and all these different things that sort of come together to coalesce and turn him into a Darkstar. And so in response to this, Hal Jordan is for the most part able to defeat him. He's able to take him out because again, at the end of the day, Tomar-Tu he's no Hal Jordan. And so when this is going on, suddenly you have General Zod who steps up. And this is why I like Zod so much, because Zod's like, okay, so there's basically those who seek victory and those who are too weak to find it. And so in this instance, he says like, I'm gonna start killing people. Like that's what this is now. These guys are gonna keep on fighting and fighting and fighting until they win. They'll fight to the last man. And so if what they want to do is fight to the last man, then I'll just help them along the way. And so in the process, he goes to kill one of the Darkstars. Jon Stewart, Guy Gardner, Kyle Rayner step in and say, do not kill him. We have to find a better way. But Hal Jordan again steps in, saves the day. Hal Jordan basically ends up taking like all the willpower that makes him who he is and channeling it directly into the Darkstar's energy source. And then by doing that, basically imbues all of them with willpower. Now, the reason why he does this is because previously Guy Gardner had told him, look, I used willpower in order to overcome my Darkstar suit. And Hal Jordan is nothing if not strategically intelligent. He's not the sharpest tool in the shed. You're never going to see Hal Jordan go to MIT. He's just too dumb. But with regards to like military combat training and with regards to like experience in being out there, the guy's got it where it counts. And so putting two and two together, he literally channels willpower through their energy source and then basically overrides the Darkstar technology. And so with the Darkstar technology being overridden, it's like removing a red lantern ring. The person returns to their normal self. And Tomar-Tu is literally just driven by like grief at this point. He's just kind of like, I can't believe I did all this, that I went on a rampage like this and did all these different things. And in a moment when General Zod goes to try to kill him, what Tomar-Tu ends up doing is actually killing himself. He ends his own life. And so he's just kind of like, I'm beyond redemption. There's nothing I can do to make up for this. And so he took the only step he felt he could by basically ending his own life. And so in this moment, what ends up happening is, of course, his ring races off to go find a replacement. The war is basically done. The Darkstars are gone. The sources ended. There really doesn't seem to be any indication they'll make their return. And of course, this leads basically into the epilogue. And it's a cool thing because remember, ever since Edge of Oblivion, the Green Lantern number has been reduced to almost zero. When you had this massive Green Lantern Corps that was basically thrust all the way to the very beginnings of the universe and had to work their way back to the modern day, so many of them were lost in the process. Now, in reality, it was a way for DC to thin the herd. It was a way for it was like DC's version of decimation for the X-Men. Get rid of the lanterns that just didn't really have a plot point or they really couldn't do anything with, and then keep the ones that everybody loved, along with a few others just to bolster the ranks, and then send the group back out into the main DC universe at the beginning of Rebirth. And so with this whole thing happening, what they need are more Green Lanterns. And so that's why Jon Stewart basically ends up, kind of beginning the ceremony, which basically sees the creation of a whole new host of rings being sent out directly into the universe itself and seeking out a whole new host of Green Lanterns. And so it's basically everything returning back to the status quo. It's almost like Robert Venditti's way of saying, okay, let's transition everything back to right before Jeff Johns started Green Lantern, where we have this vast number of lanterns, and we can basically kind of go through and start crafting whole new stories. And so at the tail end of this, we get to see the return of a familiar character. We get to see Hal Jordan returning to Earth, traveling to Coast City, and meeting Carol Ferris. And this is actually pretty exciting. This is a big deal. We haven't seen her for a very long time. And so it's cool because there's a lot of questions that come out of this. Will she return to being a Star Sapphire? Is she just going to be the love interest of Hal Jordan? Are they going to have a life together, pop out a couple kids? Like we really don't know what direction things are going to go in with regards to the two of them in this comic book line, but I'm very, very excited to find out. But with that being said, guys, we're going to bring this video to an end. If you are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like, and I will catch you all later. Peace.